that these three books had an absolute stranglehold on the first, second, and third grade when I was in elementary school. They
First
would,
grade, wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And side note, the first book came out in 1981, the second book came out in 1984, and the last one came out in 1991. I actually didn't know that. I thought they were pretty like modern when I first had them, which we got them from the Scholastic Book Fair in like elementary school, and these books had the kids terrified. They had me terrified. This was my first real involvement in horror, and it did not disappoint. I couldn't sleep at night because of these books. I mean, I would be up. My parents eventually had to take the books away from me, but and the kids were trading these books back and forth like drugs or something. I mean, it was a cultural phenomenon. So I'm curious, Kevin. I know you weren't super familiar with these books back in the day, but Alex, did you read these when you were a kid?
When I was a kid, I don't think I was as young as first grade though. I think they would have been it would have been difficult for me to read them at that age. I would guess late elementary school, probably more in like the fourth to fifth grade is when I ran across them. Although actually, I don't think I ever read the third one as a kid. I was going through, and a lot of these stories are very, very memorable. I had not run across these books in probably well over a decade, and yet I saw just seeing the titles of some of the stories, I was like, I could right now, without rereading this, just deliver this story to
Yes.
someone.
Yep.
Yeah, some of them are so timeless. And it's worth pointing out that most of these stories are not original stories. They are retellings or just direct copy paste sort of folklore stories collected by, what is it, Alvin Schwartz?
Yes, Alvin Schwartz.
And so not only are they timeless as a part of this collection, but they're actually like some of them are centuries old.
Hmm.
And they stuck around for a reason because they're very concise. They're all concise, but good.
Coming across some of the stories, they were familiar, and I think I was exposed to them originally when I was a kid because a lot of these stories were very familiar.
That's very true. A lot of them are urban legends, as I used to call them, like the Hook story with the hook
Hmm.
hanging
Yeah.
on the car
That
door,
one's
like
very
that. That's a
familiar. Yeah.
yeah, that's a common urban legend. But I do want to say what actually threw these books into superstardom, in my opinion, wasn't even really the
The
stories because
illustrations.
was the illustrations. It's this charcoal and ink combination that creates these really wispy yet gory looking images where there's these like super defined blood trails and just these amalgamations of, there might be a human hand on a dog or like a half skull half wolf face. Like, they are extremely surreal, unnerving, and I think the lack of color does them justice because, first of all, they don't look like anything you would actually see on Earth. It's like Uncanny Valley to the absolute max. And I can't imagine children. This was a child's first introduction to horror, and there's like decapitated heads, ground up bodies, like people eating each other. Like, these illustrations are peak. I was even looking at them today and getting a little bit unnerved.
They're extremely unnerving illustrations, and they're great. There's a few of them that I really want to get like prints of. Now that I revisited them, I'm like, yeah, some of these are just incredible drawings. Um, and that is definitely part of what gives this collection. It makes it so great. Is that these stories you can read them, um, and especially as a kid, I can see how just reading them would uh be scary and enjoyable, but they are meant to be told. As the name suggests, these are scary stories to tell in the dark. And there's even a preface in the first one, I think, that says something along the lines of like, hey, when you're telling these stories, tell them slowly and with a soft voice, and that will maximize their efficiency. And so you combine that with this horribly unnerving image to go with every story. And you show a kid, hey, look at this horrible thing. Before the story's even started, you are like unnerved and thinking about that picture and freaking out. And then if the story is delivered well, it hits so much harder because you have this like initial sort of spook from the picture.
Exactly. And I think Alvin Schwartz does such a good job of retelling these stories because he leaves so much up to the imagination. Like let's get into an example of what I mean here. So the story The Big Toe, which is in the first book, we're talking about a tale where a boy finds a toe sticking out of his garden, and he just rips the toe out of the ground and something scampers off. Like there's a lot of suspension of disbelief that is required to be able to enjoy these stories, because logically you'd be like, no, like how was there someone's toe sticking out of the ground? How could he not see the rest of their body? How could they scamper off after he pulled their toe off? And why would they cook the toe and eat it? Why, like, how is any of this happening? But it's told just so matter of factly, and the images, the illustrations to go along with the story are so surreal and abstract that your brain just fills in the gaps. You're like, oh, of course this thing would be wanting its toe back. Like, of course it's coming up to his bedroom at night and it's gonna kill him. So Alvin does an immaculate job of letting you scare yourself, just giving you enough information in the story for your brain to fill in the blanks and just come up with the most horrifying outcomes.
Yeah, kids' imaginations are really, really powerful. And some of these stories, when I read them again, um, I realized like the story itself, it can be very bare bones. There might not be hardly any description to like really flesh out what's going on or why you should be scared. So like if you read like an adult horror book, there's probably going to be a lot of exposition and a lot of visual description and like descriptions of the senses that go along with it. These stories don't have that, and they don't need it, because all you have to do is suggest that something that you should be scared of is around the corner or just out of view, and the mind fills in all of the gaps.
And especially as a kid, you know how much more creative your mind is.
And the
Yeah,
illustrations help. You think about like The Dream. You know which story I'm talking about, Will?
exactly. Yep.
It's really just like, oh yeah, there's a ghost, and then the ghost floats up to the ceiling and says something. But you look at that picture, and that's so awful. That picture of that lady is so horrible, and it makes it a lot scarier.
Yeah, I think it's honestly like a survival mechanism for a child to come up with the most like horrific thing possible in a situation. Like instead of coming to terms with the situation realistically and being like, "Oh, it was just a dream. There's no way ghosts are real." The kid is like, "Oh no, it's real and it's gonna kill me. It's gonna be in my room and here's this illustration." Like all of it comes together just so nicely. And I actually have my original copies of number two and number three right here with this like holographic cover art. These are amazing.
That's whack.
I couldn't find the first one. I don't know where it's packed up in a box somewhere. But these provided me so much entertainment. Like I owe a lot of my childhood to these books right here.
So you think these books
So
are what got you into horror?
I think these books helped me overcome being scared of horror. So as a kid, I mean, these basically were trial by fire. I was absolutely terrified for like probably a straight year because of these books, but they helped me enjoy the feeling of fear, and then eventually I didn't really feel fear anymore when interacting with horror media. So they helped me a lot. They were sort of like a stepping stone onto enjoying things like Stephen King.
I will say the first book is my favorite. I don't know if you guys agree with that. Um, what do you think?
It is very, very, very good. I also really like the second one, but I think I would probably edge the first out. The third one is more like humorous than the others. But I would say, yeah, it's probably one, two, three in that order for me in terms of which ones I like.
Yeah, there's so many from the first that are very memorable to me, and I want to put them in my top three just because they're memorable. Like just a short list of some of them that really stood out to me, like The Girl Who Stood on a Grave. I remember that so vividly, and I remember doing that when I was in either middle or high school. I remember sort of trying to reenact that story and see if something scary would happen. Of course, The Hook was already mentioned. The White Satin Evening Gown, that's another kind of like, myth that is told just about everywhere, of the girl renting a dress and then being killed by embalming fluid because it was a dress used on a dead person. Um, the Viper. That's a funny one. For me, I think. All right, I'm gonna give my top three for the first book, and the other two books I just have one each. But for the first book, my top three, one of them would be The Walk. And for the audience, The Walk is essentially a repetitive story that is just saying my father and another man were walking together in the dark or something like that. And my father was very afraid of the man, and the man was very afraid of my father. Is it the father? Is it a father, Will?
I think so.
I don't know. But anyways, and you don't know why they're walking together. You don't know why your father is afraid of this man or why the man is afraid of the father. And it essentially just repeats itself. Oh, they walk into the woods, and my father was very afraid of this man, and this man was very afraid of my father. And it just goes on, and it it has this rhythm to it because it's so repetitive. And then it's just a jump scare at the end. But to me, it works so well because it sort of lulls your brain into this like repetition of the verse, and but you're also unnerved. You're unnerved because you're like, why? What is the story here? I don't understand. I can't connect the dots. And then just as you're expecting the next phrase to complete as the rest have, you get jump scared. Actually, for about the first half of the first book, Emma and I read the stories to each other, and she actually scared me with this one. Like
No
I
way.
genuinely got scared. No, she really scared me with this.
Okay, so if you want to break down the top three by book, I can also do that. So I think for the first book, my three favorite, and when I say favorite, I'm gonna include how much they scared me into deciding, and also how much I enjoyed them and how much I reread them. So I think that The White Wolf has to
I
be
knew that
number
was going to
one.
be on it.
Yep, because it scared me so much. Just that image of the wolf, the illustration. I mean, I definitely lost a lot of sleep just over that alone. Like I would get to that page in the book, even if I was trying to flip through and just read another story, and I would like put my hand over that wolf so I couldn't see it. I literally felt like when I was holding the book in front of me, the white wolf could like see me through the pages. Now, the story itself is, I mean, it's about a vengeful wolf spirit that kills a guy who killed like 5,000 wolves for money. That's basically what it is. So the story itself isn't that scary, but just the story along with that illustration is just absolutely terrifying. And even to this day, if I saw that face floating in the darkness, I would have an attack. So White Wolf is number 1 for me. The second one, and if I accidentally say one that's not in the first book, just call me on it. But the second one is actually Me Tai Dodie Walker. I I love that story because it's just everything that happens is just so illogical that it's you're just on this like roller coaster ride the entire time, and it's just a continuous rising action. So in that story, this guy is trying to stay in this haunted house, this haunted abandoned house overnight, where every single night a bloody decapitated ghost head falls from the chimney. So this guy is trying to survive the entire night. So he takes his dog, and they are just surviving by the fireplace. He builds a fire because he thinks the ghost head can't come down the fire if there's fireplace, if there's a fire there. So he starts to hear this disembodied voice off in the woods in the darkness saying, "Me Tai Dodie Walker." And the dude's dog starts responding to it. The dog is singing back to this ghostly voice. So at this point, it's just that was terrifying to me because it can't actually happen, and it's just like something that the guy didn't. So he was smart enough to think about putting the fire in the fireplace, but he never would have expected his dog singing back to this ghostly voice. So the voice keeps singing in the woods, getting closer and closer. The dog keeps singing back, and then eventually the bloody decapitated head flies down the chimney. The dog dies of fright, and yeah, I love that, and the illustration's pretty good too. And number three for the first book, I would say, is the Wendigo, because it borrows very heavily from Native American folklore, and I think the Wendigo as a creature is very intimidating. and I like the parts of the story where so the story is about this hunter who is trying to go hunt some big game like moose or something in Canada. So he gets this Native American guide named DeFago to sort of show him around, and DeFago is attacked and swept away into the snowy darkness by the Wendigo. And I just think the parts of the story where it talks about the Wendigo's voice calling from the snowstorm, like DeFago, DeFago, like that. That's very nostalgic to me to even say that. So I would say top three for me: White Wolf, Mitai Doty Walker, and the Wendigo.
Well, I'll go ahead and do my three, and then we'll hear Kevin's. I'll be interested if any of ours overlap. I will say my three do not overlap with yours, Will. I already talked about the walk. I don't think I can rank them like 1, 2, 3. I haven't really thought about it enough. But the walk is one. The guests. I really like the guests. And I love the image.
The guess, is that the one where they stayed in the house and they ended up being burned down?
Yes. And, there's a lot of, there's sort of a ghost story formula of like people encounter a person or go to a place and then they ask people about it and it's like, oh, that place has been burned down or that person's been dead for 20 years. And they're like, oh my goodness, I just had an interaction with a ghost, but I went and found their corpse and like the bracelet I gave them is on the corpse. So what happened there? It's a formula and there's a lot.
Yeah, there was a couple stories like that.
Cole's Play.
But this
Also,
one stands out to me. For one, it stands out because of the image of the house. I want to print out
That was
of that
a good
one.
picture. That's one of my favorite pictures.
Yeah. And then it's also because so I had a cousin that was a very, very good storyteller and also very obsessed with horror related things. And actually he does artwork that is really interesting and kind of reminds me of the style of this artist. But anyways, he would tell these stories to my brother and I that were oftentimes based on a story like this one, but they would be much more longer and drawn out. And there's this one story that stuck with me where it's very similar to the premise of this story, where there's people driving and they run out of gas or their car breaks down and they see this spooky house up on a hill and they're like, well, it's nighttime, it's storming, we just need to stay here for the night. And so they walk to the house and there's this really unnerving, like very backwoods couple and they're like gross and like sort of malformed and they're acting really weird, but they're like, well, we have no choice, we have to stay here. And they say like, okay, we'll serve up supper. And well, one of the people goes missing while the supper is being served or being prepared. And then they're eating supper and one of them is eating this delicious, like, I think it was like sausage, and he finds a belly button. It's always stuck with me because it's the most nonsensical thing. Of all the things to find, he finds a belly button, and they realize that their friend has been served to them, that has been killed and served to them. But anyways, that kind of uses elements of several of the stories from these anthologies. But just because of that, I like the guess. And then the third story would be A New Horse. Once again, the image for A New Horse is just beyond Uncanny Valley. It's like, what am I even looking at? Is so weird.
Yeah, this big horse head with like little spindly legs.
Yes, it's so strange. But then I really like the story just because the end twist is so unnerving. So it's a story of a witch who turns this guy into a horse every night and rides him around. And his friend says, well, here, let me try to sleep in your bed and see if she does the same to me. Sure enough, she does it to him. And he manages to sort of turn the tables and undo the spell and turn the witch into a horse. And then he brings the witch to the witch's husband's house, which is kind of interesting. I thought witches were supposed to live alone. But he brings the witch to her husband's house and trades her for a different horse. The husband accepts her thinking he's getting a new horse. And then the spell wears off, and the husband finds the witch in the barn with horseshoes nailed to her hands and feet because the original guy put horseshoes on the horse. And the idea of just like finding your witch and or finding your witch, finding your finding your wife,
Dude,
and
I'm gonna
she's
fucking
got
start saying
horseshoes.
that now.
It's one and the same. They're one and the same.
Yeah, but finding someone with horseshoes just bloodily nailed into their hands and feet, and they're just like, what would happen? Would she try to explain herself? Like, I don't know. That it's weird.
All
That's
right,
my
Kevin.
list.
Kevin, what were some of your favorites from the first one?
Well, The Hook, obviously. That's an old story that I've been told many times as a kid. It was one of our big stories, go-to stories in Boy Scouts when we went camping, sitting around the fire. That one was very familiar to me. Another one I liked was High Beams.
Yeah.
That one seemed very familiar to me as well. But I also like the
Yeah.
premise of it that, she was terrified that the guy with the high beams was the one chasing her when in actuality there was somebody in her back seat. And then what I thought was pretty interesting was Wait Till Martin Comes.
Oh, I like that one too. I do like
Yeah,
that one.
that was interesting, and I actually
I'm not
wanted.
sure if I remember that one.
That was the one where the guy was caught in the storm, and we went into the house, and when he woke up, there was a cat there. They went back to sleep, and he woke up. There's another cat the size of a wolf, and they said, "Should we do it now?" And he's like, "Wait till Martin comes." And then he dozed off again, woke up, and there was another one, another cat as big as a tiger. They said, "Should we do it now?" He said, "Wait till Martin comes," and then he took off running and said, "Tell Martin I couldn't wait. I had to go."
What stuck out about that story to you?
I don't know, just the mystery about what they wanted to do to him, and if they kept getting bigger, how big was Martin going to be? So it was kind of like an anticipatory, startlement or scariness because you don't know how big, you don't know anything about Martin, and Martin seemed to be pretty important to these other cats. So it was kind of, it was unique, and it was very. It made me think, what could happen if he was here when Martin came. So.
I do
And
like
the,
that one.
the illustration was pretty good too.
So for 2 and 3, did you guys just want to give one?
I only
One
have
favorite
one
to
for
talk about?
those, but
Okay,
if y'all want to give more, you can.
I can definitely give one because there's one that stuck out to me far more than the rest in that one.
Okay, go ahead for number 2.
Okay, for more scary stories to tell in the dark, the story that stood out to me the most and unnerved me the most was Something Fell from a Loft. So this is actually a rare case where I think the illustration and the story are equally terrifying, and that's why it's so good. Now, do you guys remember that story off the top of your heads?
I do. I actually kind of almost chose it just because I really like how the ghost is so material. Rather than being this ethereal supernatural thing, it's this very hefty hunk of meat,
Bloody
which
body.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
that the story about the one who the guy who fell from the crow's nest?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think, yeah, it's terrifying to think that there is a vengeful spirit that can just materialize itself as a bloody chunk of meat that reenacts its own death just to kill the guy who killed it. Like and it was describing the fear of all the sailors on the ship. Like nobody would touch it, nobody would go near it, and just the insane guy finally goes, "Oh, I did it once, I can do it again," and then he gets dragged to the depths of the sea by the ghost, and the ghost is cackling on the way down. And the illustration is terrifying. Because it actually looks like a body that fell from a loft and got smashed on the ground. Like his face is like smashed to the side, and there's blood, and it's he's also laughing. Like it is a masterpiece artistically, and I think the story's scary as well. So that's my number one from the second novel.
It's a good choice. The one that I chose is The Bed by the Window,
Mm.
which is really just a it's really just a feel bad story. But the premise is that you have two old men on their deathbeds in a hospital, and one of them is by the window, and he's always describing these wonderful things that he's seeing to the main character who cannot see out the window. And the main character becomes so jealous that he decides to kill this other guy to get the window bed because he is just he's like, well, he's gonna die anyway, and so he kills him and then gets moved, and the window just looks on a brick wall, and so you realize that not only is he not gonna get to look out a window, he also has lost the only company he had, and it was someone who really cared about him and was doing that to make him feel better.
Yeah, that was a pretty good
Pretty
story. I
sad
like
one.
that one.
Didn't he kill? Oh no, he didn't kill two people. So the first guy died, and then he moved closer to the other guy, and that's when he realized, oh, if this dude dies, I'm gonna get his bed. So yeah, it was just a bad circumstance for the window imagination guy. But yeah, that one always made me feel really bad because it's like you said, he was trying to help. He was trying to give some life to their existences where they're just bedridden for eternity. And he thought he was doing his friend some great service, like, oh, I see the hustle and bustle of the street and the cars and the beautiful sky. He thought he was doing that guy's service, but it really just got him murdered.
Yeah, shows you the different kinds of people.
Kevin, what was your favorite from the second book?
I'm gonna go with Wonderful Sausage. Only because this one reminded me of real life serial killer Ed Gein, who murdered people and ground them up in his butchery. So I thought it was a bit dark for kids' stories, but I liked it because it was really well written and really good. So, and the illustration's pretty cool too.
The hand eating itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that one was pretty good. It's weird because there's a lot of cannibalism in these stories. I think Just Delicious probably does it the best. I thought it was sort of underhanded how they included the fact that he didn't just grind up the children, he also ground up their puppies and kittens. Like that's just a little mean-spirited at that point. On second thought, just looking through these books here, I may like number 3 more than number 2. It's at least pretty even. I think I kind of like the structure of the second book better, but I think the third book may have a little more substance. I'd have to really ponder that. There's just so many good stories in all of these books. It's kind of hard to say.
I do want to say that I thought the first was maybe a little bit more. It felt like it was actually for children. I know they're all for children, but me listening to these at 42 years old, they seem kind of childish story wise. The second book is probably my favorite because it seemed more, more adult like stories. So my order would probably be 2, 3, 1.
Well, Will, let's hear your pick for book 3.
All right, my pick for book 3, if I had to narrow it down to one specific story, I know you probably think I'm going to say Harold because that's everybody's favorite story from number 3, but that's actually not my favorite story. I really like The Appointment, but it's not. I only like it because I think the story itself is super solid. It's really short. I mean, this is like a paragraph we're talking about.
Yes, and I honestly I don't know, but I feel like that may be genuinely like 1,000+ year old story.
Yes, it is. It is. It is. It is 1,000 years old. So, ah, I really like The Appointment, but I think that's one of those stories where it's like so culturally significant that I feel like I can't really include it because it's not really original. Okay, let's not get back into that conversation. Uh, Honestly, Such Things Happen. The title illustration, the story that's based around this character, Addie Fitch. I really liked it because it has the most substance. I think it's one of the longest in Scary Stories 3, and I'd never heard it before. I'm sure it's probably some urban legend or folk tale from some culture. I'd never heard it before, but just the idea that you're a completely logical minded college educated person and you wrong somebody accidentally in your everyday life, and then really bad things start to happen around you, like your wife breaks her arm, your dog dies, and then you start to suspect, like, your logical faculties turn off and you're just like, did I mess with a witch? Like, am I cursed? So like if you think about the minor psychological breakdown this guy's having to the point where he actually like enacts a ritual on this woman to undo a curse, and it actually works, and he ends up killing her. Like, I don't know. I think that is a really, really good story. What do you guys think about number 3? What's your favorite?
I chose the same story actually. Yep. Such things happen. I really enjoyed it. I I don't know. Something about the ritual I like. I really like sort of nature based, like witch ritual type stuff. And just the grounded nature of like, yes, how you have to defeat this witch is you have to draw her on a specific kind of tree, and then draw her heart and drive a nail partly into her heart, but you have to only do it a little bit, and then every day you drive it just a little bit further, and the like tactile nature of that ritual, and then the way that she gets sicker and sicker, and that it's affecting her, like something about that just was very entertaining for me.
I agree, and I think that two things: the fact that the ritual is not just some like immediate thing, the fact that it was like this gradual agonizing thing that he was enacting on this woman adds gravity to it, to where you can sort of even feel her pain. She's like in agonizing pain for 3 days. She's dying slowly because of it. I also think that, so this guy was pretty much skeptical up to this point. He was just trying it because he was at his wit's end. But when little Timmy comes over to ask for the first cup of sugar, you can imagine the terror that went through this guy's mind. He's like, "Oh my, this is real. Like this is happening." Like I could just imagine the chill shooting up his spine when he realized that some witchcraft was actually taking place.
Yeah, because it even says like after he goes up and does the initial part of the ritual, he feels dumb afterwards. He's like, "Wow, I'm such a fool. I can't believe I really just drew a picture on a tree." And then yeah, that happens, and it had to be just such a shocking moment.
Honestly, the same as you guys. I love the witch and the tree story. That was really good. But a really really close second would be Wolf Girl. I thought that was a
Mm-hmm.
pretty good story too, and I felt like that could be made into like a full feature length movie. The basis behind it, so that was pretty good. You both agreed on the witch one, and I was smiling because it's like it's rare that we agree on the same things.
Yeah, that's pretty good because there's what, like 25 stories.
Well, I'll give some honorable mentions to see how like closely teed up we are. So I do think Harold is genuinely a really good story. It probably
Harold's
used
a
to
good
be
one.
my number one. It probably used to be my number one, but I think that the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark film actually kind of ruined the Harold character for me. That film ruined a lot of things for me. I didn't like that very much. But
Yeah, we
yeah,
should talk about that briefly.
sure,
But go
let's go
ahead with
right.
your honorable mentions first.
So my second place in number three is probably Harold, and my third place is going to be Bess. The story about how the man gets a prophecy foretold to him that his horse, his beloved horse, is going to kill him, and he's like so skeptical and trying to make sure that it's not going to happen, that he sells the horse, and the horse dies on someone else's farm, and he's like, I avoided the curse, it wasn't real. And then he goes to pet the horse's skull, and a rattlesnake comes out of it and bites him, and he dies. Like I love the like whole Final Destination esque, you can't escape fate type story. I thought Bess was very good.
It's funny you mentioned that because that's exactly what I thought of when with the ending of that story was Final Destination.
What do you think, Alex? Did you like Bess, or did it bore you?
It didn't bore me, but it did frustrate me. I because I know how it ends. I've did remember it when like from the start of it. I was like, ah, yes, I know what happens, and I find the uh inevitable destiny thing more frustrating than anything else in a story. When it's like, yeah, I know that this thing is going to happen because it was prophesied, and I know that like they're going to try to avoid it, and them avoiding it is exactly what's going to make it happen. I mean, it is the appointment. It's the same story essentially as death pointing at a man and being uh surprised, and then the man tries to run as far away as possible to get away from death, and it's like, why were you surprised? Oh, because I had an appointment with you very far away. Anyways,
Well,
it's
we
not a
can
bad story, it just frustrates me.
we can talk about the film a little bit. Obviously, this wasn't supposed to be a film breakdown. I know, Kevin, you probably haven't even seen it. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, the film.
No,
There are a couple things I just want to touch on. I think that the way that they did that film, that they chose to incorporate the stories, was really dumb. They basically took five of the most well known and well liked stories from all three books and put them into one film. So it was the Big Toe, the Red Spot, Harold, Mitai Doty Walker. What else? Did I say the Dream? The Dream.
You did not say it, but yeah.
Is that was there any more? Or was that pretty much about it?
That's all I can think of. I mean, I've only seen the movie once, and it was a little ways ago now.
2019.
Yeah, it's been a minute. But I mean, it's a pretty forgettable film. It was kind of sloppy. They tried to just like
They just
kind of
shoved everything
insert,
together.
yeah, they just inserted the characters of or this like small story points from a bunch of different stories into like one really cheesy main storyline that was just not compelling. And the whole style of the film, like the art style that goes along with these anthologies is so twisted and dark and noir, and then the movie is not that way at all. The movie just looks like a standard cut and dry, like I don't know how to describe it, but it's not filmed in the right way, it's not edited in the right way. Yeah.
I hate to be this guy, but as soon as I saw that it was getting a PG-13 rating, I knew it was going to be trash. I'm sorry. Like I just because you can't like you kind of just hinted at the art style of Stephen Gamble, you can't make that PG-13. I'm sorry. Like if you actually accurately portray that on the screen because of just the gore alone and it's good it's going to be R-rated and PG-13. I was like this is boring. They made all the dream monster looked very similar, but Mitai Dodi Walker was just a completely different creature. Like they basically just made that into a different story. Like instead of being alone in this haunted cabin in the woods just with your dog who's singing back to a monster, they were in a police station and it just starts coming down that like what? It starts coming down the chimney. It was just like what is happening? I hated that.
Yeah, I think a style that would have fit a lot better would have been something more akin to like the Frankenweenie movie. Have you seen that?
Yes.
You know, it's a claymation, it's black and white. The characters are malformed and twisted and just grotesque, and it's very off-putting and uncanny. And something like that could have got a lot closer to the vibe of the books, I think.
I don't know who directed it, so I could honestly seem really dumb here when I say this, but I think Tim Burton should have directed it.
The you're talking about uh the don't they're sorry, the Scary Stories movie?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean the whole point of these stories is to be unnerving, and like you just think about the way that the film begins. I can't remember hardly any of the details, but it's like okay, a lot of horror movies do this thing where they start out sort of happy and it like establishes the characters' lives and like everything's fine, and then you introduce a problem. That is not how this should have been done. It should be more of like a psych thriller where from the beginning of the movie you are very much off put and uncomfortable. But instead they opted to be like, oh yeah, we're just gonna establish like this teenager in a new town and he's like exploring a beautiful theme park with his girlfriend and everything's happy, and then they start getting haunted by ghosts. It's like I'm not in the right mindset to be scared by a ghost.
Exactly. None of it made sense. Like I'm pretty sure the film opens with like Harold just being in some high schooler's house. Like that doesn't make sense. Like there's like, oh yeah, we're high schoolers, but we have some like stuffed scarecrow in the corner for some reason. We abuse it. And also at one point in the film, they take somebody's toe out of the garden and eat it. Like what? I now to be fair, I think part of the storyline was that they read the books, so like the events within the books like had to come true or something. But that doesn't even make okay. This isn't a movie review, but it was really dumb. I hated it. I was actually on a I was on a first date when I watched that film, so I didn't even really care about the film. But even like during that, I was like, this sucks.
I think you guys need to remember too. These books were written for kids, so when they did the movie, they most likely had kids in mind, which is why it got a PG-13 rating, which is why it wasn't as scary as it should have been.
Yeah, but if they can traumatize me as a kid with their illustrations, and they can traumatize the kids of the next generation with something else.
You know, that's the thing. Like a kids movie can be unnerving and off-putting. I think. I mean, Frankenweenie is an example. That is a kids movie. Coraline is to some extent a kids movie, and those are like deeply disturbing films and very artistic. But just yeah, it doesn't have to like always be. I don't know how to put what I'm saying. I'm gonna give up on that sentence.
I know what you're saying.